Oh, I would think so. I don't know why we wouldn't, but I guess we would. It's him, and you just don't know. Yeah. That would be the answer why we wouldn't. But I would think yes. I would think we would.
Adam Schefter with us yesterday, Senior NFL Insider, Adam Schefter Podcast, wherever podcasts are found. If you missed any of that conversation after 8 a.m. Eastern, go back on the podcast. What do you do with that podcast?
Back that thing up on the podcast.
And run the volume on the way to the side.
Hey.
So
we haven't heard from Jerry in a minute.
It's real quiet, isn't it?
Real quiet.
Yeah, real quiet.
I didn't know who you meant at first. Jerry Jones. Yeah, that's a good point.
We haven't.
Who else would we be talking about, sir?
Like, who's this Jerry guy that we know?
He's one name, like Beyonce, Madonna,
Yeah, Jerry. Or Jera.
Jera.
That's interesting. How many one-name guys are there in football?
Saquon.
Saquon's a good one-name guy.
Well,
if you use
last name.
No, that's the thing. First name. Because I was going to say, like, Aaron.
Russ.
That's a good one.
When we say Russ, everybody knows it's Russell Wilson.
Patrick.
We say Mahomes.
Yeah,
15.
Lamar, definitely.
Lamar.
Josh. No, we say Allen. We say Burrow.
Right.
We say Mahomes. With Rodgers, we say Rodgers are 8, or Farrell of Florham Park.
Yeah.
No longer, but that was what we referred to him as.
Tua's a good one. Mm-hmm. Justin, no, for Herbert. I'm just thinking who else? Trevor, no. That's it. Russ and Saquon may be the number one.
First name?
Well, also because the uniqueness of the... do you know any other Saquons? I'm sure there are other Saquons somewhere. I don't know. Probably a lot of kids in Philadelphia are going to be born as Saquon now after winning a title like this. Anyway, so if you think about, again, the trickle-down of what's going on with this QB carousel, it's fascinating. Russ to the Giants, okay? They're off the board for another free agent, not off the board for the draft. The Cleveland Browns, maybe waiting for Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins only waiting for them if they don't draft a quarterback. So maybe Shador, but maybe not Shador. Where does this leave the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are just sitting there seemingly banking on one guy and one guy only, and his name is Aaron Rodgers? Albert Breer, the MMQB senior NFL reporter, was on with Amber and Ian, 7 p to 10 p Eastern time, and gave a little clue as to what Rodgers could be looking for, and this may drive one Michelle Smallman crazy.
It sounds to me like he's looking for what he had in Green Bay. And then after 2 years with the Jets, he has a greater appreciation for what the Packers did for him and what the Packers were over his 18 years there. Steelers aren't unlike the Packers. I don't think the Jets people have many bad things to say about him. Like if you're talking to some of the people that are out there now, you know, that were there last year that aren't anymore, you know, my understanding is they're saying good things about him. I think when you look at like the Steeler culture and where they are, it's a little bit different than where the Jets were.
So Albert Breer is saying that Aaron Rodgers didn't like the setup in New York with the Jets. Well, who set that system up? Who's the one that dictated how things went with the Jets? Who was it? It was 8. Now, the organization gave him the autonomy to make a lot of these decisions, but he got the offensive coordinator he wanted. He got all of his buddies to get contracts there. He's the one that was going on Pat McAfee. And thank you for doing so, Aaron. It's your right, and we love to break it down week after week.
LeBron
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Please continue to do that for us. But it didn't really help your organization win football games. So you like the way that things were run in Green Bay? Hindsight is always 20/20, but I'll be very interested to see in his next stop which approach he takes, because this is somebody who was upset that they drafted his replacement. He was upset by the way that things went in Green Bay. He wanted more control and more of a say in things. He got everything he wanted, and it resulted in 5 wins in 2 years and a lot of people losing their jobs.
You bring up an excellent point about the way he set up the Jets versus the way the Packers are and were. Now, obviously, ownership versus no ownership is a huge part of this. But you bring up a really interesting point, because I'm going to do something I don't normally do. So, breaking news. Let me praise LeBron James.
What?
What did he do when he went back to Cleveland? Second time around. How did he try to set it up? To resemble what? Miami. How did Tom Brady set up Tampa? To resemble what? New England. Aaron Rodgers didn't set up the Jets to resemble Green Bay. He brought in people that worked there. That's different than setting it up that way. I talk to people around that Packers. It's about winning and only football. You went to the Jets. And if you like the Packers setup so much, CC, explain this to me. Why are you not already a Steeler? What team resembles the Packers more than any other team in this sport?
The Steelers.
Pittsburgh.
What are you waiting for if you love the Green Bay setup so much? The Steelers, to the Rooney's credit, it's almost like they don't have owners because they're so hands-off. What?
And if you miss what you had in Green Bay, the nostalgia of it, part of the reason you probably loved it is because you had a lot of football success there. So, again, what are we waiting for with Pittsburgh? Because that's your best option currently in order to have football success.
Is it? Is it?
Go on.
I'm just saying, we saw the interview that J.J. McCarthy did with Kay Adams on her show yesterday, and J.J. McCarthy revealed that he has not been told by the Minnesota Vikings that he's QB1. Now, newsflash, there ain't but 2 quarterbacks on the roster for Minnesota. It's J.J. McCarthy and Brett Rippon, who has a grand total of 4 starts since he came in the league in 2019.
Great job by him still being in the league.
Outstanding job by him. Outstanding job by him, by the way.
Oh, Evan.
He's not good. What, do you want me to lie about this?
Listen, Brett Rippon could be working for us at some point down the road.
Don't be good.
Don't be disrespectful to Brett Rippon.
Brett, what a career you had. Tremendous.
Don't do that to Brett
Thanks
Rippon.
for joining us.
But anyway, but you get what I'm saying. Maybe, just maybe, the Minnesota Vikings are still on the board for Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers wants to fully assess that out, fully vet that out before he makes a definitive decision on where he's going to play, if he's going to play in 2025. Because make no mistake about it, the Minnesota Vikings are a better football team than the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
Sure.
They're a better team. And they just spent $100 million in contracts and free agency on the offensive line alone. Not to mention you got arguably the best receiver in the game in Jettas, and you got another damn good receiver in Jordan Addison, who is a former first-round draft pick. And you have T.J. Hockenson at tight end, another former first-round draft pick. You got weapons, and you got Aaron Jones in the backfield. Kind of familiar with that guy.
And you have a good defense.
And you have a great defense. So, better situation in Minnesota than Pittsburgh. It's fascinating to think that after all of this time, all of the posturing, the 6-hour meeting that happened in Pittsburgh last week, that the Steelers could be the ones left out in the cold when it comes to the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. And if that happens, if that plays out in that fashion, where the hell does Pittsburgh turn in?
Oh.
So there is, I have a wild idea on that.
But what is it?
You're gonna laugh at me, but you
Just
know
say it.
Okay, you know I like this guy and other people don't. And Mel Kiper does too. I'd trade for Will Levis.
Okay.
He's not good, but he's not someone that is he's not Brett Rippon.
Okay.
Like, that should not have been your plan, but that is at least. If you miss out, I was thinking about this on the way in. If you miss out on Rodgers, because I had the same thought of, where the heck are you going to go? At least he's a guy that started.
But I don't hate the Will Levis idea. Okay, forget about what we saw last year.
It's not a great one, but it's an idea.
Well, there's not a whole lot to work with in Tennessee last year, right? So I'm not going to dismiss Will Levis can or can't be in this league. It's still so early in his career. And he has a ton of talent, a lot of physical ability. But doesn't that keep the Pittsburgh Steelers in the same position that they've been in for the last half decade?
And Aaron Rodgers doesn't?
I'm not saying that Rodgers doesn't.
Okay.
But to me, this is more of the same with less proof of concept. At least with Aaron Rodgers, I got something to hang my hat on. Maybe he can turn back the clock and be some semblance of the 4-time MVP and the Super Bowl champion. Remember what Brett Favre looked like? He wasn't bad with the New York Jets, but he certainly wasn't the guy that we saw in Minnesota in the years after, right? So maybe, just maybe, what we saw from Aaron Rodgers over the last 2 seasons is more of a byproduct of the environment with the New York Jets than it is an indictment on Aaron Rodgers' ability. Now, I don't believe that, but I could see the Pittsburgh Steelers talking themselves into that. With Will Levis, there's less evidence that this guy can be the quarterback that you need him to be to change your playoff fortunes. And that, to me, is what the problem is. We
need to continue this because the Steelers being left out of the musical chairs is a fascinating part of this. But there is a wild internet fan theory, that's where I live, on how this Rodgers situation is all going to end.
Chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình nhé.